Have you ever imagined what it feels like to slap your husband's mistress across the face? I did that to Chloe Harper, the glossy blonde side piece of my husband, Michael Carter. But Michael, he didn't get angry. He just looked at me, eyes soft like I had dropped a crystal glass, and he was already ready to forgive me. Her accident wasn't your fault, Olivia, he said, his voice low like a sad ballad. I don't blame you. You're Michael Carter's wife. You should be more gracious. What would you do if it were you? Forgive? Stay silent? Or do something else? Just think about it and leave your answer in the comments. This story isn't as simple as you might think. Gracious. That word felt like an invitation to stab myself with a gold-plated fruit knife. That night, Michael came home close to midnight, as usual, with a strange woman's perfume clinging to his Armani shirt. He sat beside me on the couch, wiped my tears with the hand that wore a Rolex, like he was some kind of philanthropist handing out mercy. It's just a marriage arranged for financial gain, Olivia, he whispered, voice sweet like artificial sugar. Let's not talk about feelings, okay? I almost laughed, but tears rushed out like a broken dam. Financial gain. Oh, he said it like I was some real estate investment he drunkenly bought and regretted. But Michael forgot one thing. Back when I was 20, he got down on one knee in the middle of a rose garden, eyes shining like a paparazzi's flash. Olivia, I'm going to marry you, he said, gripping my hand so tight I thought my heart might stop. I'll never betray you. And I believed him. Believed it so much that at 22, I turned down a full scholarship to Cambridge just to become Mrs. Carter, wife of a broke startup guy. I thought our love was a romance movie, but it turned out to be a cheap commercial that airs at 3 a.m. on some cable channel. Later, Michael Carter took out a full-page ad in the Los Angeles Times to publicly apologize to me and announce he was cutting ties with all his affairs, like a PR stunt to save his image. Let's stop fighting, he said to me, voice pleading like a businessman trying to close a deal. Let's try to live well from now on, okay? I laughed, a twisted kind of laugh that came out with tears. Laughed at the irony, the recycled promises, the pain that had become a familiar friend. One day, maybe, we'd let go of all this, but absolutely not while we're both still breathing. After my daughter passed away suddenly, my world collapsed. I couldn't sleep night after night, lying on the now cold, spacious bed, staring at the stark white ceiling under the dim nightlight. I downed bottles of melatonin and even the sleeping pills from my private doctor, but I still jolted awake in the middle of the night. On one of those sleepless nights, when the clock struck 2 a.m., and I was curled up on the sofa clutching my daughter's favorite pillow, a pillow that still faintly smelled of milk and baby perfume, the phone suddenly rang. It was a call from Michael. His voice came through the speaker, low but hesitant. Chloe said her accident was caused by you, he said. It had been so many days since our daughter passed, and I rarely laughed anymore, but in that moment, a cold smile crept onto my lips, spreading like frost from the corners of my mouth down to the pit of my stomach. So, is that what you think too? I asked, my voice strangely calm, though inside me a storm raged, and I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. That's what she said, Michael mumbled, not answering my question directly, dragging his words out like he was dodging a punch, and that silence felt like a confession, like another knife twisting into an open wound. Whatever, I said, suddenly feeling like everything was meaningless, like a dark comedy where I was the main character being duped. The moment you called to ask, your tone already carried the accusation. No matter what I say, you're not going to believe me. Michael stayed silent on the other end, offering no argument, only a faint exhale, like a silent acknowledgement of that harsh truth. As a kid, reading stories where the male and female leads misunderstood each other, I always wondered why they didn't just explain things and clear it all up. But now that I was living it, I understood. Explanations didn't matter. Nothing you say matters. He had already chosen not to believe me, had chosen to side with Chloe and her lies, and that choice built an invisible wall that would forever separate us. On the other end, Michael sighed. A heavy breath weighed down by accumulated mistakes. Denise, you know I messed up, but I want to make things right. His voice now carried a pleading tone, like a child caught stealing cookies. Those women outside, they weren't love. The one who built everything with me was you. Only you deserve to be by my side. Just don't make a scene, okay? No need. I cut him off, my hand slightly trembling as I emphasized each word, feeling like I was finally freeing myself from chains. I've contacted a lawyer. You'd better get ready to sign the divorce papers. I would no longer tolerate the disrespect. The late night returns with unfamiliar scents, the hollow excuses, and now the blatant doubt. I deserved to live free and happy, to wake up in the morning without dreading the next lie. Maybe Michael really did feel guilty now. But how long would that guilt last? A week? A month? Or just until Chloe whispered more poison into his ear? I was once his first love. Does that mean I'm supposed to endure this my entire life? Endure fake embraces, broken promises, and now the grief of losing our daughter, a grief he hasn't even fully shared with me? No, I will not be a lifelong victim in this twisted play. Once Chloe gets what she wants, she'll demand more, like a venomous snake devouring everything bit by bit. First, she'll make everyone, including me, acknowledge her as part of this elite world. Then, she'll boldly step into the official wife's role, sit in the chair I once occupied, and enjoy everything I built with my own sweat and tears. This world is small, and stories like this are far from rare. Marriages destroyed by mistresses, women pushed to the edge, and betrayers continuing to live lavishly. I've seen too many, from friends to coworkers, stories repeating like some hellish loop. I absolutely will not be a stepping stone for them, will not let Chloe and Michael trample over my life. On the other end of the line, Michael let out a bitter laugh, the sound drifting through the phone like a sad melody. Dry, acidic, soaked in helplessness and fakery. Denise, don't say impossible things, and don't throw a tantrum with me, he said, dragging out his words like a salesman, trying to convince someone to buy a broken product. I can't divorce you. I love you, Michael went on, the words spilling out, trying to paint an illusion of happiness. Other than this, I can give you anything you want. He paused, probably picturing some fantasy where everything stays the same, where I sit quietly in our luxurious home, pretending nothing's happened, while he continues his late-night outings and secret phone calls. Michael kept trying to sell me a delusional future, throwing out hollow promises of wealth, European vacations, expensive gifts, all just to keep me, like some decorative item in his collection. A wave of exhaustion surged inside me, filling my chest, making it hard to breathe, and I calmly opened my mouth, my voice steady, clear, without hesitation. Then if I told you to die, would you do it? I asked. There was no reply on the other end, just silence, thick and heavy like a boulder pressing on my chest. Then if I told you to cut ties with Chloe, could you do that? I continued, my voice still calm, though a storm of rage churned inside me. Michael stayed silent. Silence meant he couldn't. Everything was already answered, clear as day, no need for further explanation. He didn't want to let go of the old one at home, the wife who sacrificed everything for him. Nor could he walk away from the new flame, that young, seductive Chloe. He wanted both, like a greedy child clutching two toys, refusing to let go even knowing they were hurting someone. Shameless. That greed made me sick, like staring at a distorted painting of the love I once believed in. In July, Los Angeles hosted an international business conference, and the city buzzed with energy as sleek limousines rolled along the boulevards. At a charity gala in Beverly Hills, under glittering crystal chandeliers illuminating the grand ballroom, with tables draped in white silk and bursting with fresh flowers, I saw Chloe again. She looked youthful, like a newly bloomed flower, her skin smooth under expertly done makeup, long shiny hair cascading down, and a fiery red gown hugging her figure. radiating a freshness and vitality that drew every gaze toward her. From afar, she and Michael looked exactly like the kind of powerful couple praised on social media. Picture perfect smiles beneath camera flashes. One was the dewy-eyed young woman, the other, a seasoned businessman in a tailored suit and confident gestures. He was showing her the world, his hand gently resting on her waist, guiding her through the crowd of executives and celebrities, introducing her with polite handshakes and brief conversations about business, while she leaned into him obediently, her head slightly tilted, smiling shyly like a good student learning from her mentor. "Been watching them long enough? Do they look good together to you?" came a familiar voice at my ear, accompanied by the soft clink of champagne glasses. It was an old friend, Lucas Reed, now the reigning power of the Reed dynasty, hair slicked back, dressed in a polished black tuxedo. He had outmaneuvered his father, eliminated his rivals with precision, and successfully taken over the vast family empire. In recent years, he walked with the air of a young king claiming his kingdom. I turned to look at him, and suddenly, the glass in my hand felt unbearably heavy, a bitter taste rising to my tongue. "No, I feel disgusted," I answered, my voice low but sharp, gripping the glass so tightly the cold glass burned into my skin. "All that talk about eternal love, isn't it just a filthy affair dressed up to look pretty? I gave up my career and years of my life for him, and he dares to betray me like this in public?" The words poured out like a flood, carrying all the pain that had built up, making my chest tremble. The moment Michael's eyes met mine across the room, he froze, his tall frame coming to an abrupt stop, his gaze revealing a mix of shock and panic. Quickly, he shoved Chloe's hand off his arm, his hand leaving her waist roughly, and strode toward me with long, hurried steps, his face trying to stay composed, but his brows slightly furrowed. Chloe noticed me too. She lifted her chin proudly, eyes sweeping past me with disdain, lips pursed into a smug little curve, her hand still holding a sparkling cocktail, like she was marking her territory in the ballroom. As the two of them approached, Chloe's high heels clicked sharply on the marble floor, blending with the soft background music from the live orchestra. I stared at her closely, taking in every detail of her face, the subtle cosmetic enhancements at the corners of her eyes and chin. Still beautiful, but in an artificial way. Her skin gleamed under the lights, untouched by time. Youth really is undefeated. Michael used to say I was even more beautiful than her when I was young, his voice sweet, fingers caressing my cheek during quiet evenings. But later, he said, with a tone of regret and blame, "Time doesn't spare anyone. You're not that young girl anymore. Sometimes when I want to bring someone to an event, you always seem uncomfortable." But Michael was wrong. It wasn't that I was uncomfortable. It was that at parties thrown by men and their mistresses, those gatherings where people whispered about power and scandals, wives like me had no place. Where would I stand in that crowd, wearing a forced smile, avoiding eye contact? Why would I go? To watch the show? To see my husband fondling another woman, while whispers of pity trailed behind my back? Chloe's skin was porcelain white, her figure slim, and she moved with the dainty grace of a little swan gliding across a lake. I'd heard she had just graduated from a dance academy this year, and was now preparing to audition for the Los Angeles Ballet. Every movement she made, from the tilt of her head to the way she held her glass, felt like a meticulously rehearsed performance, drawing eyes from every corner of the ballroom. "Denise, not going to introduce the man beside you?" Michael spoke up first. I didn't even have time to reply before Lucas burst out laughing, his laugh ringing through the noisy room like a bell, full of confidence and a hint of mockery. "Michael, are you pretending?" he said, eyes glinting with challenge. "It's not like we just met today, right? And now, in front of your mistress, you want to play dumb with me?" Lucas raised his champagne glass. "Fine, let me introduce myself then," he said, his tone calm but carrying an invisible pressure. "I'm Lucas Reed. This time, I'm back in Los Angeles for good. And the purpose? Lucas paused, his eyes full of meaning, gaze sweeping provocatively from Michael to me. He leaned in, close to Michael's ear, voice low but loud enough for me to hear. I came to steal your wife. The words weren't loud, but each one shot through the air like an arrow, freezing both me and Chloe in place. Lucas stepped back just in time to dodge a wild punch from Michael, his hand slicing through the air with explosive fury, but it missed. Chloe trembled, clutching tightly to Michael's suit jacket, her tiny hand digging in, red-painted nails gripping the fabric, eyes wide with panic. Michael stood there, teeth clenched, his expression tight with rage, but I knew it wasn't jealousy. It wasn't love. It was just that deep inside, he still saw me as something he owned, and the idea that someone else dared to take me lit up his pride like gasoline on fire. He was like a child who couldn't let go of a toy, not because he loved it, but because he didn't want anyone else to have it. Can't even handle this little thing? Lucas dropped his smile, his voice like ice, eyes sharp as blades pointed directly at Michael. When you parade your mistress around in front of your wife, did you even stop to think how she might feel? His words fired like a gunshot, echoing through the room, making a few nearby heads turn as murmurs began to spread. I cut Lucas off, my voice calm but firm. That's enough. I had already decided to divorce Michael, already prepared to climb out of this emotional swamp, but that didn't mean I was about to dive into another pit with Lucas. I didn't want to trade one cage for another, even if the new one was gilded. Michael, if you start a fight here, it'll be all over social media. Chloe chimed in, voice trembling, like a puppy about to be abandoned, eyes glistening with unshed tears, looking to Michael for protection. There are so many reporters here tonight. Please don't. I noticed her hand, the one wearing that dazzling 10-carat pink Tiffany & Company diamond ring, sparkling under the lights, elegant and haughty, like a silent declaration of ownership. I had seen that exact ring at an auction a few months ago when I called a friend for help buying it. My friend later called me back, voice tinged with regret. Someone kept pushing the price too high, Denise. I didn't think it was worth chasing. When I asked who bought it, she winked and teased me through the video call. No joke, babe. The one who bought it? Your husband. Didn't he give it to you yet? The moment she said that, my heart stopped. The air in the room suddenly felt heavy. We stared at each other through the screen, her eyes slowly shifting from playful to confused. Wait, you're not joking, right, Denise? She asked, her voice shrinking, realizing her mistake. You really didn't get it? I never did. I'd never seen that ring, never knew Michael had even attended that auction. It was that very night I found out my husband had a mistress. Michael suddenly grabbed Lucas's arm. His fingers clenched so tightly, the tuxedo fabric wrinkled under the pressure. His face flushed red with fury, and he dragged him out of the ballroom. Now it was just me and Chloe left in the room, the air suddenly thick like a sealed box, and though the soft background music kept playing, it now sounded like distant laughter mocking me. Hello, Denise. Chloe lifted her chin to look at me, trying to arch her swan-like neck with elegance, her lips curling into a smug, challenging smile. Her intent was crystal clear. She looked down on me like some outdated relic, eager to flaunt her sparkling ring and youthful beauty, itching to compete, to claim her position in this power game. I could tell she thought I wasn't worth worrying about, just the discarded wife Michael was ready to toss aside. Girls like her always believed beauty was the ultimate weapon, as if a pretty face granted them permission to bypass social norms, dismiss the meaning of marriage, and rewrite their entire lives just because a successful man noticed them. Like a little mermaid stepping ashore, oblivious to the fact that the ocean could swallow her whole. Miss Harper, I said calmly, locking my eyes onto her pale blue ones, making her blink instinctively. Your dancing is beautiful. I've seen it before. My tone was light. Maybe she didn't expect me to respond that way, because her smile faltered, the corners of her lips twitching slightly, her porcelain cheeks tinged pink with surprise, and her fingers unconsciously tightened around her cocktail glass. You know who I am? She asked, trying to keep her voice confident, but it was clearly probing. Of course I do, I smiled, lifting my champagne glass casually. After all, you said I caused your accident. If we'd never met, how could you make such a bold accusation? Ever since I learned of Chloe's existence, her full dossier had been sitting neatly on my desk, courtesy of my private investigator. Michael said his wife keeps clinging to him. Chloe pouted, a childish gesture laced with mockery, her eyes scanning me from head to toe, like she was inspecting a flawed item. I'm guessing that's you? It's not like he has another wife. She blocked my path, her slim frame holding steady, like a wall of arrogant defiance. I looked at her face, now contorted with anger, her dainty brows furrowed, cheeks flushed under that thin layer of makeup, her eyes brimming with unshed tears barely held back by fake pride. Of course he has another wife, I replied, voice still calm, but every word cut sharp as a blade. And you're just the mistress, aren't you? You bitch! Chloe's face turned crimson, her hand trembling as she pointed at me, that once pretty face now twisted in rage. Michael already said he's divorcing you. You're just some old woman he's sick of now. I'd seen this scene too many times, mistresses getting bold and cocky. I wasn't even mad anymore, just tired, a deep weariness swelling inside me like a rising tide. Say whatever you want, I replied, voice as light as a breeze, placing my glass on the nearby table. Whatever makes you happy. I turned and walked away, leaving Chloe frozen behind me. Before leaving, I looked back at her with a faint smile, one laced with pity and a quiet warning. Spreading false rumors, not afraid of being exposed? Miss Harper, whatever skills you've got, bring them on. Originally, I had planned to divorce Michael quietly. Even though he betrayed me, it didn't erase the fact that we once loved each other. I was willing to step aside for his new love, let it all end in silence. But now, seeing her so shameless, that mocking smile and venomous words, I, the legal wife still holding that title, suddenly didn't feel like letting Chloe take my place so easily anymore. Late at night, Michael and I returned to the villa one after the other, silence wrapping the vast house like a blanket, broken only by the gentle rustling of the silk curtains in the wind and the faint neon lights flickering in the distance. I sat on the long bench out on the balcony, a thin silk shawl slipping off my shoulder, hands wrapped around a glass of red wine, eyes drifting lazily toward the city glowing below, the place where dreams are bought and sold with money and power. What a high-priced view. Back then, Michael had nothing but a sincere heart. But now he had climbed to the top. Fame, fortune, all of it. Yet that heart had become nothing more than a luxury item, traded away for lies, and long nights spent with someone else. Did Lucas bring you home? Michael's voice came from behind, low and probing. I didn't turn around, just tilted my head slightly, letting my hair fall across part of my face. You were too busy introducing Chloe to your friends, I replied, a reminder that he had chosen to abandon me tonight in favor of parading his mistress around. Michael clearly caught the undertone. He stepped closer, but didn't dare raise his voice. Instead, he softened, almost pleading. I'm sorry, Denise, he said, standing just behind me, his warm breath brushing against my shoulder, carrying the familiar scent of cologne mixed with wine from the party. Before tonight's event, I had already prepared to leave the villa. I'd contacted my lawyer to begin drafting the divorce agreement. But now, facing Michael's performative remorse, I realized it wasn't yet the right moment. Not when I could still shift the balance of this game. I turned to face him, adjusting the silk shawl that had slipped from my shoulder, my movements slow and graceful, eyes scanning Michael like a negotiator sizing up her opponent. He spoke first, hurried, as if afraid I'd cut him off. Denise, I wasn't planning to bring Chloe tonight. She wanted to come see the world. You haven't been to a business gala in a long time. I didn't think you'd show. If I had known. His explanation spilled out like a rehearsed speech, In the past, I might have snapped, let the rage crash down like a tidal wave, unleashing every ounce of resentment I'd stored inside. But now, I had more important plans. "No need to explain anymore," I said, my voice gentle, and Michael froze, a flicker of hope lighting his eyes. I looked him in the eyes, gently wiping away a tear at the corner. "I believe you." Michael lit up like a child handed a second chance, his whole face relaxing, his eyes sparkling like he'd just stepped into the sun. "Denise, you're not angry anymore?" he asked, voice trembling, stepping closer, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder as if afraid I'd vanish. I nodded and smiled softly, though inside I was colder than ice. "You're right. Everyone makes mistakes. I love you, just don't make another one," I said. "I won't," Michael answered firmly, wrapping me in a tight embrace, his warm breath against my hair. "Denise, I promise I will. What I promised you, I'll follow through. You're not like the others." I know my limits. I let him hold me, my body still, eyes peering over his shoulder into the darkness beyond the balcony. "One more thing," I said, lifting my gaze to meet his. "I want to expand the Vesper Jewelry Studio, keep myself busier. Maybe that way—" I paused, looking him straight in the eye, my voice gentle but layered with meaning. "I won't overthink so much. Maybe we can go back to how things used to be, right?" "Of course," Michael said immediately, with enthusiasm. "Denise, we love each other too much for divorce. Don't worry. Whatever you want to do, I'm all in. Keeping busy is good. It'll keep your mind off things." That was the real reason he agreed. Not because he still loved me, but because he wanted me too distracted to interfere, so he could continue his late-night outings and whispered calls with Chloe. But that's fine. We're adults. Who's more sincere doesn't really matter. I already restructured the studio's business model last year. This year, I want to turn it into a full brand chain, I said, voice steady, as if telling an ordinary story, though every word was chosen with care. "How much do you need?" "I'll give it to you," Michael interrupted generously, voice full of confidence, waving his hand like a king granting a favor. "Denise, you're finally letting me help." I pretended to hesitate, lowered my head slightly, fingers toying with the necklace at my collarbone. "I don't need much capital. I already have that. I just need your help expanding the market, building some buzz. And, at the launch event, I want to borrow your name to invite Mrs. Eleanor Vaughn, owner of Sterling and Vaughn. Would that be okay?" "Of course," Michael agreed instantly, without a second thought, pulling me back inside. His voice now carried relief. "The wind's strong. You'll catch a cold." I said nothing, didn't resist, letting him guide me back indoors. In Los Angeles, high society, status, and affiliation are the ultimate passports. With Michael backing me, I'd bypass many roadblocks, clear the path for Vesper to rise, and turn it into an empire of my own. If divorce is inevitable, then before we part, I'll make the most of everything available to me. Guilt, that's when men are softest, and I would wield it like a weapon. However much love remains, I'll use every last drop. So when I walk away from this marriage, I won't leave with just memories of my daughter. I'll carry with me a brilliant future that I built with my own hands. Sterling and Vaughn is a world-renowned luxury brand. Its boutiques spread across the globe, from Paris to Dubai, from Tokyo to New York, each diamond crafted like a work of art, carrying such commercial value that the world watches with bated breath. Its founder, Mrs. Eleanor Vaughn, is the ultimate symbol of power in the industry, a woman with razor-sharp eyes, whose every decision shapes the direction of the entire market. If she were willing to grace the launch of Vesper's new collection, my brand name would echo far and wide. With Michael as my connection, I was determined to make the most of it. In the days that followed, I stopped arguing with him, didn't mention Chloe, didn't dig into old wounds. I poured myself entirely into work. Design drafts were spread across my desk. Late nights passed beneath the glow of my study lamp, as I sketched out every contour of the diamonds, every fine detail of Vesper. Michael, as if sensing the shift, began spending more time by my side. His gaze lingered longer, filled with something like confusion, as if trying to rediscover the version of his wife who once gave up everything for him. According to the detective's report, Michael hadn't visited Chloe in over a week. And yet, that didn't stir any emotion in me. No joy, no pain. Love had once been a fire that kept me warm, but now, all I wanted was to devote myself to building something lasting. 3 months later, my Vesper jewelry brand held its sixth product showcase inside a lavish venue in the heart of Los Angeles. As each diamond piece was ceremoniously introduced on stage, the sparkle of gemstones danced across the hall. Applause filled the air, blending with lively chatter from the guests, designers, entrepreneurs, and members of the press. Then came the moment Mrs. Eleanor Vaughn, founder of Sterling and Vaughn, appeared as the honorary guest. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. She wore an elegant black dress, her silver hair styled in a regal updo. The room erupted. Thunderous applause, cameras flashing like fireworks, media scrambling to capture the moment, headlines exploding across every platform. Mrs. Eleanor Vaughn stood beside me on stage, her gloved hand gently brushing over a Vesper necklace, her eyes scanning the design's every line before turning to me with a rare smile. She spoke, voice low but commanding. Vesper isn't just jewelry, it's a story of persistence and talent. Those noble words, spoken by my idol, made my chest tremble. Not with emotion, but with a deep, grounded sense of accomplishment, as if I had finally scaled a summit I once thought unreachable. It turns out, when you pour your whole heart into your work and receive something back, that feeling of achievement far outweighs the haze of love. Money and career are what keep me steady. Love, now, it's just a spice, no longer the whole meal. During the private interview session after the show, I stood before the mic, eyes scanning the crowd, my voice clear and confident. Vesper is Italian for sunset, or twilight. It symbolizes the softest, most romantic moment of the day, and a sacred time for life's important rendezvous. I paused, my gaze unintentionally sweeping to the back row, where Chloe sat in a deep blue dress, her eyes brimming with hatred. She truly couldn't help herself, showing up to something this important, as if daring to challenge me on my own stage. When our eyes met, her face contorted, lips pressed tight, her eyes burned with jealousy, like she wanted to set me ablaze right then and there. I didn't bother reacting to her petty provocations. Instead, I smiled even brighter, letting my gaze slide past her like she was no more than a passing shadow. At 16, I graduated high school early. I studied jewelry design in Italy out of passion. By my sophomore year, I had founded my own design studio, which would later become Vesper. Later, during college, I won several international awards. Just before graduation, I received an offer from the international division of Sterling and Vaughn. They wanted me to be one of their designers. It was, without question, the greatest affirmation of my abilities. From the moment I learned of Sterling and Vaughn, I was full of admiration. But when I created Vesper, I suddenly wanted to bet on myself, to see how far I could go on my own. Then, I returned to Los Angeles, married Michael, and helped him manage his company. Step by step, we built it up and cemented its place in the market. Michael's company focused on creative technology and artificial intelligence. It started from nothing. He was just a regular student, no background, no connections. I was the one who begged my father to keep funding him, who pulled him up the ladder. I was born into a middle-class family. My father ran several businesses. My mother founded a long-standing charity. I grew up surrounded by excellence, watching the love story of my parents. They built everything together, from the ground up to the pinnacle of success. That made me yearn for my own love story, one as beautiful as a fairy tale. And then I met Michael. Back then, we lifted each other up, held hands through the struggles, and I truly believed our love would never change. But in this world, what love really lasts forever? The past, those years, were always destined to fade, like Vesper's sunset, dazzling but fleeting, leaving behind only a twilight filled with quiet regret. I stood on that stage, but inside, there was a strange peace. Chloe, Michael, the betrayals, the pain, they were all faint silhouettes now. Vesper was my sunset, the dream I built with my own hands, and I would not let anyone or anything stand in my way. As the applause roared around me, I knew I had found myself, not in love, but in the fire of ambition and the clarity of purpose. These past few years, Vesper has moved slowly but steadily, like a gemstone being carefully cut and polished. Not rushed, but always shimmering. My brand became sought after by Hollywood stars, adored by elegant women drawn to one-of-a-kind designs, pieces with a unique signature, impossible to replicate. I stood in the design studio among raw diamonds, my heart burning with ambition. To take Vesper global, to expand without losing its refined soul, to recruit the best designers in the world, and to carve my name into the history of jewelry. Michael, caught up in his guilt, spared no expense trying to make it up to me. On the nights he returned to the villa, his gaze would avoid mine, his voice softer than usual. "Denise, whatever you need, just say the word. I'll do everything I can to support Vesper," he'd say, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder, as if trying to bridge a distance that had long since broken. I looked at him, a faint smile on my lips, not because I was moved, but because I saw the opportunity. If I didn't seize it now, there might never be another chance. Back then, I was arrogant, naive enough to believe that what I had achieved was enough, that I could build everything alone without anyone's help. But now, looking back, I see the harsh truth. Life isn't about accumulating everything by yourself. It's about leveraging what you can to climb higher. Michael got to where he is today, thanks to the manpower and money from my parents. Kids need floaties to learn to swim, training wheels to learn to walk. I used to look down on people who relied on others, thinking it was only noble to rise by your own strength. But now I understand. What you lean on doesn't matter, the process doesn't matter. What matters is the result. That moment when you're standing at the top, and the whole world has no choice but to look up at you. Having support is so that one day you don't need it anymore, so that once you're high enough, you can walk forward on your own without ever needing to look back. From today on, I no longer want to drain myself dry. Every drop of sweat, every sleepless night, I'll use all of it to push myself higher, not to keep picking at old wounds. The truth about Chloe spreading false rumors finally came from Michael himself. She said if I don't marry her, she'll keep spreading lies. He paused, falling into a long silence, his lips pressed tightly together, eyes fixed on the floor, as if trying to escape the very words he'd just spoken. I took a sip of tea, the bitterness blooming across my tongue. Michael looked up, his face clouded with a confusion I'd never seen before, brows furrowed like a man trapped between two lines. "Denise, I made mistakes, but she—" His voice broke, like he was grasping for a way to justify it all. Once, he had looked me in the eyes and sworn he was done with Chloe, and yet now, standing in front of me, he was fishing for excuses, twisting his words like someone trying to drag out a play that's already reached its final act. "Let's get a divorce," I said, my voice soft with sadness, like a wife who understands her husband's impossible position. "Michael, have your lawyer prepare the divorce agreement." I looked him straight in the eyes. If I didn't say it first, he would have eventually, so why not seize the upper hand, use whatever guilt he still had left to negotiate something for myself? Michael froze, and for a second, his eyes lit up with something close to relief, but he quickly masked it with a fake, solemn expression. "Denise, I'll never forget everything you've done," he said firmly. "Whatever you're owed, I'll make sure you get. If you ever need anything from me down the road, just ask." He stepped closer, his hand half lifted like he wanted to touch me, but stopped midair. realizing the distance between us couldn't be undone. I didn't push him away, just gave a small nod. If one day I really do need your help, I said, your new wife won't blackmail you with rumors to keep you from helping me, will she? I tilted my head slightly, locking eyes with him, watching for even the tiniest change in his face. Chloe had crossed the line many times before, saying things that irritated him, throwing out sharp remarks at parties. I knew he'd grown tired of her. If it weren't for the baby, he probably would have tossed her out of his life already. But now he was cornered, forced to compromise. And me, I wasn't afraid to toss some thorns into their path. No, Michael said, voice low and tight, like something had just clicked in his mind. If she pushes too far, I won't let her stay by my side. He clenched his jaw, his hand curling into a fist, anger flashing in his eyes. But I knew it wasn't because of me. It was frustration boiling over, from the false sense of freedom to the irritation of being manipulated by Chloe. I smiled quietly to myself, then rose to my feet, picked up my Hermes bag, moving slowly, gracefully, like a queen stepping down from her old throne. But on the surface, I had to perform. I had to look like I didn't want this divorce, like I was sacrificing out of love for him. I let my body waver slightly, one hand bracing against the doorframe, my head bowed, shoulders trembling faintly like I was holding back tears. Michael, I said, my voice small but full of staged emotion, if this is really what you want, I'll let you go. If Chloe could act, why couldn't I? Even if I walked away, I would never let them have peace. Chloe might use the baby to control Michael, but I would use his guilt, use every crack in their relationship to make sure the price they paid wouldn't be cheap. I stepped into my new home. The private investigator placed a thick folder on the glass table in front of me. This is everything, Ms. Wilder, he said, sliding the stack of documents toward me. Chloe had never been in an accident at all. Every photo was fabricated to manipulate Michael. Lately, my relationship with Michael had calmed down. Chloe, with the instinct of a predator, sensed it immediately. She recklessly spread false rumors, staged a fake accident to cling to Michael, to push me out of the picture. If I had withdrawn indifferently from the beginning, if I had left Michael and Chloe alone, his guilt would have slowly faded. He would have started to see me as an inconsiderate, distant wife, while Chloe, with her sweetness, would have become the ideal partner. And by then, Michael would have stepped into a new marriage with her, carrying resentment toward me and a heart full of fresh love for her, just as Chloe planned. The more people try to intervene, the more couples trapped in toxic affairs cling tighter, as if the whole world is against them. That's what Chloe wanted most. Her tragic love story overcoming all odds, with her as the radiant leading lady. But I, Denise Carter, would never let this game follow her script. I intentionally played nice with Michael. Soft smiles, gentle words, feigned forgiveness. Every gesture was calculated. I wanted Chloe to feel triumphant, to believe she had already won, so that in the very moment she felt most smug, I could strike and show her that, in Michael's heart, she meant nothing. Once fear crept in, she would make mistakes. And the louder she cried, the more demanding she became, the faster Michael would grow tired of her. Michael marrying Chloe for love is one thing. Being forced to marry her is something else entirely. I just had to sit still, sip my wine, and watch her carefully scripted drama fall apart. It only took us 2 months to finalize the divorce. With Michael's guilt in my corner, my lawyer, a woman with eyes sharp as blades, and a professionally serene smile, ensured I walked away with exactly what I deserved: shares in Michael's tech company, 2 villas in Malibu, and a lump sum large enough to scale Vesper globally. Michael quickly married Chloe, but there was no lavish wedding, no roses, just a prenup. From now on, they were legally husband and wife, but I knew it wasn't the happy ending Chloe had dreamed of. That day, I stood at a distance, watching Chloe. She looked worn out. Her pale blue silk dress no longer clung gracefully to her figure, but hung loose, as if trying to hide her exhaustion. More than 4 months of living in constant fear of being exposed, If she didn't have a steel mind, she would have broken already. Let's go. I turned to my assistant, voice flat, my eyes sweeping over Chloe one last time. Remember, this is the last time we see Chloe this year. From now on, whatever happens to her is none of our business. I got into the car. The pregnancy Chloe claimed was fake, just another tired trick to keep Michael tethered. I knew she'd find someone else to blame, stage another drama, the same way she always had. The last time, she really had been pregnant, and to force Michael to divorce me, she staged the story of me pushing her and causing a miscarriage. In reality, she secretly went to a private clinic and had the baby terminated herself, then pinned it on me, hoping Michael would turn his back on me in a fit of rage. But she miscalculated. That time, I had just caught Michael cheating, and his guilt was still fresh. Even believing I'd caused the accident, he didn't blame me. He even comforted Chloe, covered the whole thing up just to protect me. She failed, but didn't give up. This time, she tried the same trick again. Fake pregnancy, fake accident. But fake can never become real. After Chloe married Michael, she started contacting me again. Taunting, cursing, threatening, flattering, trying every tactic. She wanted to meet. I knew exactly what she was up to. She just wanted to shift the blame onto me. To avoid the drama, I booked a flight to France. Before I left, I sent all the evidence about Chloe to Michael through an anonymous email. He's smart. I didn't need to say a word. He would figure it all out. Not long after, news of Michael's divorce started spreading on social media. News outlets confirmed it, one after the other. At the same time, Michael started chasing after me, trying to rekindle things, like some love-struck boy far too old to be acting that way. Every morning, the freshest roses arrived at the front desk of my company. I'd glance at the card, toss the bouquet straight into the trash. "Denise, is this from Michael?" a friend visiting for a business meeting would ask, amused. "Is he trying to win you back?" I'd toss the flowers again. "And he still has the nerve to say those things?" The wounds he left back then weren't the kind that a few romantic gestures could patch up. Besides, this kind of childish flirting, people grow out of it in their 20s. Michael's already been divorced twice. What's with the tragic Romeo act now? He sent flowers every day for a month. I reported it to the police, and only then did he stop. But soon after, a new project proposal appeared on my desk. The pitch was about restoring historical diamond jewelry for museum exhibition. Famous artifacts, stunning pieces with outdated stone settings, and old cutting techniques due to their age. One of my associates casually picked up the file. "This is a rare opportunity. If we win this project, we'll expand our market significantly. It's an international collaboration backed by the government. They'll promote it heavily. If we land it, we'll gain national recognition and press coverage." I glanced at the familiar signature on the file and picked up the phone. From now on, no documents are allowed on my desk without my prior approval. I paused. Also, this restoration project, I already plan to compete for it publicly. I do not accept partnering with Michael. Our company will win this contract fairly, through open bidding. Why should I accept his so-called favor, letting him believe my success came from his generosity? My team is brilliant. We've always led the way. I have every confidence we'll win this bid. After 2 months of relentless interference, Michael changed tactics. He began slipping into the smallest corners of my life. The cafe I frequent, he'd be there every time I showed up. Even the hair salon I always book, he'd bought shares. After dodging him again and again, I finally snapped. "Michael, what do you want from me?" "Denise, I just wanted to see if you're doing okay. You've seen it. Now can you leave?" "The past was my fault," Michael said, more urgently now. "But everyone makes mistakes, right?" "You've got to give me a chance to make it right." Just 3 months the evening breeze drifted in, cool and steady. After giving him a firm rejection, I turned and walked away. But Michael took my silence as acceptance. Every morning, the front desk received a delicate breakfast tray, pastel-colored macarons perfectly arranged, along with a handwritten note. Wishing you a beautiful day. Michael, on Friday afternoons, luxury wellness supplements were delivered, curated by his private doctor, based on the minor ailments I used to mention years ago. Whenever I worked late, a sleek black car waited downstairs, a driver ready. One time, a rival brand teamed up with media outlets to falsely accuse Vesper of design plagiarism. Sensational headlines spread like wildfire. Michael launched an investigation immediately, personally took the evidence to the authorities, proved it was slander. His pursuit grew louder by the day. Even friends who usually ignored celebrity gossip whispered when they saw me. Michael's chasing you like some love-drunk teenager. For 3 months, he tried everything: meals, medicine, cars, damage control, all in the name of making up for what he did. But I was no longer the same Denise who once thought sincerity was rare and precious. The next morning at work, before I even got out of the car, I saw Michael standing outside the building, holding a bouquet of deep red roses still glistening with dew. His face looked exhausted, but hopeful. "It's been 3 months, Denise," Michael said, voice hoarse and cautious. "I know I can't expect forgiveness. Not when what I've done doesn't even come close to what you went through. But I'm going to keep trying." I stood there, silent for a long time. "Michael." I sighed, voice soft but steady. "There's no way back for us." The light in his eyes flickered and died. His face went pale. "Michael," I continued, "the night I found out you cheated, I had just gotten back from the hospital. The doctor had told me I was pregnant." Almost 2 months, silence swallowed the space around us. The street noise outside faded into the distance. Michael's face twisted in horror, his eyes wide, lips trembling. "It was hours?" I let out a bitter laugh, the sound brittle in the wind. "Yes. After losing our first child by accident, we lost another. That night, while you were wrapped up in your affair, the baby left." Michael clenched his fists so tightly, his knuckles turned white, his voice raw. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But those words floated like air, weightless, useless, far too late to fill the holes he left. I turned away and walked into the company lobby. Our relationship was over. Nothing left to fix. I never planned to tell Michael about the baby. I didn't need his guilt. But last night, I received a health report, his. Since the house we once shared now belongs to me, the documents had been mailed there. The paper stated clearly, a tumor in Michael's brain. I stood in silence for a long time. If he wanted redemption, then I would take every wound he gave me and play it as my final card. Brilliantly. I sent the file back to the hospital and asked them to forward it directly to his office. Everything was arranged. No one would ever know I touched it. I wanted him, in his most remorseful moment, to read that report, to remember what he had done, and leave every last asset to his ex-wife. If I couldn't receive enough love from the man I once loved, then I would take his money. He dies. I live. That's the best ending I could imagine for this relationship. A cold, clean finish. Like the sunset of Vesper, dazzling, then gone, leaving behind a twilight that belongs only to me.